Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Red Room. This is a special Red Room. It's my 20th broadcast, which says I've been doing this for a while and I love it, and I've only just begun. Thank you for sharing it with me tonight. And as you know, tonight we're looking at the fourth of 6 components that make up the core, the center of a great relationship, an intimate relationship, a marriage relationship, or a relationship worthy of marriage. And emotional intelligence is a huge topic. And tonight we're talking about emotional intimacy. And of course, if we want emotional intimacy, we want to be emotionally intelligent. And I love teaching emotional intelligence. It's one of my favorite things to do. It's extremely complex. And I love using the EQ map, which is an assessment. It's an instrument that measures emotional intelligence on 20 scales. So emotional intelligence is rather formidable. And of course, this evening in the Red Room, I can only touch upon it, but at least introduce it to you. And if you are interested in going farther down that path, you can actually take the EQ map online and get a score and a workbook. I also have written my own study guide for the EQ map, and you can request that from me as well. So remember, I'm here live, and I'm interested in answering any questions that you have. If you'd like to type them to me, it always makes it more fun for me and for the other listeners or viewers tonight. So we're looking at the 6 major components that make up the connections in the marriage relationship. And remember that those are the 6 areas inside the heart of the marriage model. So emotional intelligence, and tonight, if you want, the handout that you can download is one practical tool, which is 4 steps to fight nice. Well, if we're in a relationship with anyone for any period of time, we're always going to come up against a bump in the road, a piece of adversity, or something that we disagree on. And as you know, if you've listened to me in the Red Room before, the greatest predictor of the end of a relationship or a divorce is avoidance of conflict. And we usually avoid conflict because we don't know how to do it so that it works and that we solve problems. It's too unpleasant, and we're not equipped to do it in an efficacious or successful manner, and so we want to avoid it. Well, tonight let's look at what it takes to be able to disagree. Sometimes we fight, but we need to make it not into a battle, not into 2 warriors attacking each other, but a way where we can work out our disagreements intelligently and respectfully, which brings us to one of the components of emotional intelligence. First off, let me read you the list of the 20 components, just to give you the big picture of that which makes up emotional intelligence, the requisite for being able to be emotionally intimate. And of course, emotionally means being able to understand your own feeling nature and to be expert, easy in the saddle, know what you're doing, manage yourself, use your emotions to be passionate and empathetic. So if we're thinking, right now we're thinking about the wisdom of the heart, or how we as human beings use the heart. Because the heart is just the mammalian brain. It's not intelligence with human intelligence. It only is a response to what we think about and what we care about. Because we'll think about things that we don't really care about them, which means we probably won't have any emotional response. If we think about something that we're passionate about, there may be a turmoil in here, or a very reverent place where if that which we care about is threatened in some way, we will feel strongly, if nothing else, outrage, and will want to take action to improve the situation. So the 20 things that make up emotional intelligence, here we go. See how many of these you could have predicted. Life, how you handle your life pressures, how much you have life satisfaction, your emotional self-awareness, your ability to express yourself based on your emotions or your feelings, your emotional awareness of others' feelings, your intentionality, which is being active and focused with constructive motives, your creativity, which means you don't censor your creativity, you don't turn it off, and you are able to have fun and stretch out, think outside the box. Your creativity, this is the 7th component of emotional intelligence. And then the 8th component is resilience. I love resilience, that ability to bounce back whenever there's a bump in the road or something we didn't expect, where we take our setbacks and turn them into success, where we can step out of the fast lane and say, wait a minute, what do we need to do to handle this? The 9th component of emotional intelligence is interpersonal connection, where we have a network, positive people, and we can express with the people that are important to us both our happy feelings, our positive feelings, and our difficult feelings, and do it in an empathetic and respectful way. Constructive discontent. I think I may have mentioned this once before. I love the idea of constructive discontent because if we're interested in growing, and I believe that's the purpose of life, whatever we get to, there's something here where we're not content with it. And what we want to do, instead of complaining or grousing or feeling inadequate or blaming somebody else, that discontent says, I'm discontent about something, and what am I going to do? Which presupposes I have the sense of I can do something about this. Then your outlook, which means positive language, positive thinking rather than negative. Emotionally intelligent people are optimists, they're positive, they're can-do people. Your compassion, which means your ability to be respectful about others, to withhold your judgment and not judge them. It's also, sometimes we forget that compassion is not only for other people, but it's for ourselves. Sometimes people are too self-centered, and yet when a person is too self-centered and too blaming, oftentimes what we find is they do play victim and they don't really take care of themselves. They're not sensitive to their own needs. They don't have compassion for themselves, more like they're demanding what they need rather than tending to themselves with sensitivity and compassion or empathy. And then there is intuition, part of emotional intelligence, and we could talk a whole long time about that one too, couldn't we? Trust radius. Trust radius. What's your trust radius? How far do you trust who in which situations? And you know that there are people that are way too controlling, way too tight, way too closed down. They don't trust. And it usually comes from something or another in their past that hurt them and that they couldn't trust. And then they generalize that. Or the other side, I came from that background where I was overprotected, which means I didn't develop a trust radius. And guess what? I got into relationships with people that were not trustworthy in certain ways, which means I needed to have been educated to be less naive and less trusting without grounds to expand the trust. That's the 14th component of emotional intelligence. 14 of 20. So 15 is personal power. Personal power. Sometimes I think of personal power as being freedom. Here we're thinking about personal power. Typically we think about power as being able to hold something and control it. The true personal power is the ability to let go, because you have so much confidence in yourself and handling whatever it is that life brings to you that you let go. And notice if you're personally power in a close relationship, you don't have to hold on to or try to control the other person. You can let go because you have so much respect for the other person and you know how much to trust. And even if you are hurt, you have the emotional intelligence to handle yourself. So that sense of personal power is really and truly, how would I say this, an ability to master yourself, power over yourself and your own abilities and skills, internal and external. And personal power also is that you manage yourself so well that you can rehearse certain endeavors that you want to be successful at, so that you prep yourself to conduct yourself at the highest level of personal mastery in that situation. Isn't that interesting? I love teaching about emotional intelligence. Then your integrated self, so that you match your actions and your values. Your expression accurately mirrors your intention, your feelings. You can admit that you were wrong and apologize. You're authentic. You don't have to cover up. You don't have to put on a mask. You're an integrated self, kind of like comfortable in your own skin. Know yourself, know your good parts, know your weaknesses, and you're okay with all of that. Isn't that a nice way to be? And isn't it nice to be around people who have that maturity and that level of health? Then general quality of life, your relationship quotient, how positive and successful and enjoyable your relationships are, not only personally but professionally. And then, of course, your optimal performance. Are you succeeding in your home life? Are you succeeding in your professional life? So those are the 20 components of emotional intelligence. Of course, we can't talk about all of those tonight. And anytime you have a question, please type to me about that. So if we're looking tonight at some specific pieces about what is really and truly necessary for a good intimate relationship, a good marriage relationship, one of the things that always comes to the top when I'm working with a couple is their ability to communicate. And you know I've spent quite a deal of time in the Red Room talking about communication, always will. And safe communication, intelligent communication, and part of what I think of as mental agility comes from your emotional intelligence, which means you understand your emotions, other people's emotions, and you know what to do about them or what not to do about them. And that means that you have developed a degree of intelligence and sensitivity to that. You're aware of yourself and others, and underneath that is that natural ability to come from the heart, which is to be, in the public sense or the professional sense, respectful. Respectful of yourself and respectful of others. And then in the private sense, kind or empathetic, where you're kind to yourself and to others, and you are empathetic in the sense of being compassionate and sensitive to what is kind and respectful for other people as well as yourself. So when we have that underneath, sometimes if we don't have the talents built on top of it, then we end up being a doormat, or we compromise a situation because we're too pleasing. And there we build on top of that the ability to be open and honest. That trust radius, Well, not only the trust radius, but the sense of movement, of give and take with your trust radius. You know that if in this relationship with this person, if you touch on that subject in an insensitive way, they're going to back down. They're going to feel like they're not worthy, or they're going to feel threatened and either attack or shut down. So we want to know, especially in an intimate relationship or close relationship, we want to know where people are sensitive and to be compassionate about that. And then to figure out what it is that's going to work in that interaction. So if we think about emotional connection and emotional bond, that's going to require something that most people kind of shy away from or say, give a bad name to, which is vulnerability. Now, in a certain world, vulnerability is a bad thing. People want to avoid vulnerability. Like on the battlefield. If you're a warrior, you don't want to be vulnerable. People will kill you. If you walk into a place where you need to be strong and have a task to do, it's not about being vulnerable. It's about being focused, task-oriented, efficacious, successful at what you want to do. But walk into the world of where we want to be connected with people and where we want to be deeply connected with people. That means you open your mind, your heart, and the essence of your identity in order to bond and connect. I was recently working with someone who had a disrupted bond very young in childhood. He was born to two people who were going to college, and they were both very devoted to going to college. One actually was working to put the other one through college. So he was left for the first 2 or 3 years of his life with another couple. And then when his mother and father had completed some of their work, and his mother came back to take care of him, whenever his parents would leave to go out on a date, he would be out of control with a temper tantrum or terror or a frantic fear. So that's one of the places where we see that his ability to bond was disrupted and that he was terrified of being abandoned or left alone. So then, if you want emotional intelligence, if you want to connect deeply, and that means you want to open up completely, if you have that disrupted bond, you don't even know what it's like, excuse me, to experience that kind of a bond because it was disrupted and you can't trust it, starting when you were very little. So what we want to be able to do is, in the intimate relationship, to be emotionally intimate is to completely open, relax, let in, let out. That means talking about all of the things that you care deeply about. Your wishes, hopes, and dreams, your fears, the things that you would like in terms of goals, the things that you honestly haven't figured out how to solve or work out. If you're in a relationship where it's not safe for you, it's going to be scary to share those wishes, hopes, and dreams and open up and quote-unquote be weak in terms of the real world and completely vulnerable. So if you really think about being completely vulnerable and open and honest, it's becoming best friends. And if there's a problem there, you don't shut down or throw a tantrum. You say, oh, I'm sensitive to this. and we need to talk about this, or we need to figure this one out. There you are emotionally open, honest, and present. You're not shutting down, you're not pushing away, you're not judging or criticizing, you're not pleasing. Okay, so we have a comment. I downloaded your Fight Nice 4 steps, and if I read it correctly, fighting nice is actually not fighting at all, in the usual sense, that is. That's exactly right. So is being nice actually avoiding fighting altogether? Yes. Yes, thank you for asking. When we're emotionally intelligent, when we're free and easy with our systems, we don't ever get to the point of that much disrespect or, quote unquote, throwing a tantrum to that degree. It's not really appropriate anytime to raise your voice or yell and scream. It's never appropriate for adults to insult another person. If you have compassion and if you have respect, you don't do that. It's not in your vocabulary. So this is fighting means dealing with a conflict, dealing with the disagreement. And so how to fight nice is to talk about your disagreement, but not fight at all. We don't want a battle. We don't want to fight. We don't want an argument because, correct me if I'm wrong, but have you ever seen it go anywhere quickly, constructively, with no fallout, no damage or wounds left behind? So this 4 steps to fight nice: withdraw to cool down, manage yourself, which means you don't expect somebody else to manage your emotions for you. If you find your emotions or your defensiveness coming up and getting too strong, you're so emotionally sensitive, you're connected with it, and you know that this is not going to work, and you decide, okay, this is not going to work, I'm going to manage myself. This is not what a lady or a gentleman would do. It doesn't work personally, and certainly it doesn't work professionally unless you're in an unprofessional or immature environment with either a personal relationship or a professional relationship. So, but in a previous broadcast, I think you said couples who don't fight may have more problems. Ah, good student. You're remembering a concept, but not the exact idea, because it never used the word fight. It used the word conflict. So yes, the number one predictor of the end of a relationship or a divorce is avoiding conflict. So we want to be able to walk into, make friends with, and solve our conflicts. And if we do that with fighting, we're probably not going to be very effective at solving the conflict. So does that make sense? We don't want to fight, and we want to solve the conflict. And the conflict really isn't a fight. Does that make sense? And there are some people who really like to fight. Some people who like to fight because they're louder, more aggressive, and that's the way they win. There are some people who, and immature people, and I know several attorneys, they are professionally trained, probably since even middle school, to be on a debate team and to verbally fight, and in the courtroom to fight, and to make sure that they always come out on top. They always are the winner. So professionally trained people who demand a competition and who demand to win probably are not going to have the skill to be even in a personal relationship unless they're mature. So if you're a trained litigator or fighter or debater, that's not going to apply to your personal relationships, because seeing the other person as your adversary isn't going to solve a problem in a peer relationship where we want you to respect the other person. So in essence, when you solve a conflict and don't avoid it, what you want to do is you want to guarantee that both people are equally respected, and it's not about one or the other winning. It's not about a competition. And that's one of those things that talks about where we don't want two monologues where this person has a side and this person has a side. We want a dialogue that's equal, going back and forth. And when you get into this kind of a relationship, neither person wins. The win is that the two people have come together, and they have found a way where they no longer have a conflict that is difficult or separating them or clumsy in between them. So yes, it's the best predictor of divorce when you avoid conflict, because little by little by little there are wedges that come between you and separate you because they're not solved, they're not dealt with, they're not cleaned, removed. So this handout from tonight, the 4 Steps to Fight Nice, is to show you what people do when they want to solve a conflict rather than avoid it. And that it does not involve arguing. Does not involve somebody trying to win. It does not involve somebody trying to make the other person wrong and them right. It involves a civilized and respectful and hopefully empathetic discussion of the disagreement. And when you find yourself moving into the warrior or the enemy mode, it's not going to go anywhere. Now, if you've got an old habit, and many people have an old habit, they're so emotionally undeveloped in this way that they go from just being ordinarily talking, and they get threatened, they instantaneously go into outrage and anger. So they go from 0 to screaming and yelling. So they have, in essence, skipped over all these different levels of arousal. So think about how dogs do it. They're a really cool example. If a dog is threatened, do they immediately just jump out and bite you? What do? They warn you. They give you a warning. They don't escalate to attack. They growl. Cats growl too, in a way, or they hiss. So they give you a warning. And when you see a conflict coming up in a relationship, what you want to do is decide how you're going to deal with it, how you're going to get past it, solve it. And that means it's probably a step-by-step process. And in the business world, of course, if we know people who are truly leaders or great managers, they just don't go to somebody the old-fashioned way and yell and scream at them. They do something in private. They connect it with something intelligent, like a job description or some kind of conflict. And they go, or even if you went to a great school, the school counselor, the school officer, the principal, they would set up a series of discussions and accountability with the child and the parents to solve the problem. And if it's a good school and if they have good professionals, the children experience that process so that it's respectful and intelligent. And so instead of avoiding the conflict, they walk right into it, and they have a prescribed method of dealing with it that ends up with a resolution, usually apology and forgiveness. And think about this. If you were in some kind of a disagreement or conflict and somebody apologized or you had to apologize, that relationship, when the apology is accepted and forgiven, or the difficulty is forgiven, that relationship is from then on somehow loaded with something that's more special. Because in essence, apologizing is being emotionally intelligent. It's opening yourself up and being vulnerable and admitting that you weren't perfect and saying, I want to make peace with this, then the other person's acceptance of that and ability to forgive. So notice both people are giving something that they otherwise might not have given. So usually when there's an apology and forgiveness, the connection with that person is on a stronger level in certain ways, whether it's professional or personal. Any questions? Something coming up for my viewers, and thank you so much for tuning in tonight. Disclosure, being emotionally open, is what's necessary to connect deeply. We want to disclose what we love, what our dreams are, what we really believe in. And when that happens early in a relationship, it's pure joy, pure delight. And the more you open up, the more you open up, the more you open up. Now, we all know circumstances where people get to that place where they open up and they share something private and delicate. And the other person either proves to them that it's safe, because they don't tell anybody else about it. They keep that close, protected in their own heart. Or, on the other hand, they're at a social event, or they're talking to somebody else later, and that privacy has been revealed to somebody, whether it's a best friend, whether it's in public to needle that person. When we don't keep it close, then that disclosure has shown us that the intimacy can no longer be complete. Sometimes we end up branding all women as people that won't keep a conversation private. Sometimes we end up branding all men. You know, you can't trust them because they tell people or they gossip, whatever it is. So that ability to have complete disclosure is necessary, first of all, for being best friends, because you need to communicate about everything, but for being emotionally sensitive and open. That's why learning to quote unquote fight nice or deal with your disagreements or your problems is necessary to be emotionally open and for people to be completely honest and frank, to disclose all of the things that are deep inside them or of great reverence to them. Any questions about that? One of the lovely descriptions of emotional intelligence is how we experience our emotions. So there are 3 ways, and usually, as I teach about a continuum, right? So in the middle is the person who has easy in the saddle, good emotional intelligence. And that's the passionate person. The person is so connected with what they care about, they feel strongly about it. And even though they open themselves up and they're vulnerable, they're not afraid of making a fool of themselves. They're not afraid of criticism or judgment. They just believe in this and they're passionate about it. Now, on one end, there is the person who is indifferent, which means they don't have a connection with their heart. They don't have a connection with feeling passionate about something. And then on the other end of the continuum is the person who is out of control with their emotions, who is a slave to their passions, rather than having their passions as an expression of who they are. Their feelings, in essence, they are so answerable to their feelings that they're jerked around by whatever it is, whatever feeling is going on inside them. So let's look at these 2 elements. And if you want to know more depth about this, you can go to the seminal work by Daniel Goleman, which I respect so highly. He put into words for the public and for all of us a beautiful description of emotional intelligence and how it works. So it's Daniel Goleman's book, Emotional Intelligence. That's a nice repository of many things about emotional intelligence, as well as the EQ map. So the slave to passion, the person who is over here out of control with their feelings, and often, you know, when we label somebody a drama queen, a woman who is manipulative, emotionally loud, or guilting, or a man who is a bully and a tyrant, or passive and whining. These people are on what we think of as an emotional roller coaster, which rules their lives. So they're accountable, answerable, obedient to wherever their emotions are going to take them. So they have an overly intense experience of their emotions, and they are passion's slaves. Rather than being answerable to what is wise and intelligent, connected with empathy, makes us wise. So when emotions are out of control and too extreme and too persistent, they become an immobilizing depression or overwhelming anxiety or raging anger or manic agitation, where they're in essence no longer relaxed in their own skin and connected with their mind and their heart. They mix chaotic elation and grandiosity, where they think of themselves as impervious and glamorous and full of intense energy, so they mix that with irritation and rage. And when people are in the throes of this kind of what we call mania, and this is like a person who is bipolar, they're both way up there in that mania or way down there in that depression, they often feel so overly confident in the mania that they see no need for any kind of help, despite the disastrous decisions that they're making based on their feelings. And then chronic worrying, people who are a slave to their fear, it's like a low-grade emotional hijacking. They allow their fear to hijack them, and again, they're answerable and obedient. They're a slave to their fear. I call that their false fear. They're reading dangers into life's journey that other people kind of brush off or they don't even notice. So these people are the slave to their passion, slave to their feelings. Any questions about that? Then there are the indifferent people, the people who are disconnected from their feelings. So they are dulled, flattened, their emotional nature is very small, and they have what we call alexithymia, which Greek A is lack, lexis is for word, and thymos is for emotion. They're lacking the fundamental skill of emotional intelligence, of emotional self-awareness, and they don't know what they're feeling as the emotions roil inside them, if they even allow their emotions to roil inside them. Sometimes they flatten it down so much that they just become feelingless. And then the emotionally intelligent person who is passionate. They love life, they love being themselves, and they're excited about it, and they're very emotionally responsive to it in a positive way. So this is the sophrosyne. Isn't that a cool word, sophrosyne? Let me type that for you. Sophrosyne. Oh, I need to put my cursor there. Sophrosyne. Cool word. This person has care and intelligence in conducting one's life. Isn't that elegant? It's easy to say, and it's so nice to be around people who are like that. They have care and intelligence about conducting their life. My definition of wisdom: they care and they're intelligent, and they integrate that. They have the ability to feel intensity and subtleties of emotions with the ability to understand them and their sources. Henry Roth wrote, "If you could put into words what you felt, it was yours." So if I can say, "Ooh, I'm a little nervous about this," I know I'm feeling a kind of a low-grade anxiety or fear. "Ooh, I'm feeling delighted." I know about delight. I know about joy. "Oh, I'm feeling really kind of guilty about this." It's like, "Ooh, I did something wrong. Gee, what did I do wrong? I need to make it right." Or, "Oh, I'm really feeling sad about this. Makes me feel makes me feel the tears coming up. This is really something I care about, that I'm maybe grieving just a little bit." So if you could put words to what you felt, it was yours. When you're emotionally sensitive to your own feelings, then you possess the feeling, and when you possess it, it's your choice how you use it. That means you're master of it. You can wield that as you wish. You're able to shake off a bad mood. It's like, I'm grouchy. Let me do something that pulls me out of it. Or, gee whiz, I'm feeling kind of depressed. Let me call and have lunch with my friend. The self-mastery to withstand emotional storms that the buffeting of fortune brings. And that, remember, that's the component of resilience or constructive discontent. So that whatever the bumps in the road that life brings us, whether it's a discouragement, it's an obstacle, it's an inadequacy, it's the stock market, it's the oil spill in the Gulf, whatever it is that life brings, we have the mastery to withstand those internal emotional storms. Excuse me. And we don't get out of control with it. We decide, what's our part? What's my part in terms of responding to this with the utmost care and respect, intelligently? And then people who are passionate, have emotional intelligence, they're more naturally attuned to the emotional mind's symbolic modes, metaphor and simile, along with poetry, song, fables, dreams, and myths. That elevates us to another level of sensitivity, mastery, and artfulness in life when we're sensitive to those things. When we see the meaning in a story, where I was looking up in the sky last night and there are trees coming over our street and I could see the moon there, and it was like the moon was wearing one of those veils, in the 40s when women wore a veil over their face. It was kind of elegant. And that's what it looked like. So I was thinking about that metaphor with the beautiful silhouettes of the trees in the sky. And so it became a passionate moment for me. You have, when you're a passionate person, a natural attunement to the heart's voice. What I care about, I'm naturally attuned to, ooh, I care about that. Ooh, I want to do more of that. Or, ooh, I need to do something to help that. The language of emotion is the heart's voice. Those who are passionate are more gifted in giving voice to the quote-unquote wisdom of the unconscious, so that we start to listen to not only what's logical and reasonable, not only what's about kindness and empathy, but what's there in the soul, what's there in our intuition, what's there in the broader sense of being human. Isn't that lovely? Wisdom of the unconscious, of the felt meanings of our dreams and fantasies, the felt meanings of the symbols and things that we have around us that embody our deepest wishes. And that makes me think of when I ask people to create their goals, rather than just a written list of goals, I ask them to create an image poster or a visual goal poster of their dreams, pictures of them, because those pictures say many, many more things than just a sentence can say. And so that's for passionate people, to express that colorfully and sensitively, deeply. Any comments or questions about that? So feeling check-ins. This is just a simple how-to for being connected with your own feelings. You would first identify it, learn to identify it, and you can identify it by looking at where it appears in your body. Sadness is going to appear in your chest or your throat where you want to cry. Down here in your solar plexus, that's usually the butterfly feeling. That's anxiety or fear. And power and control, usually you're going to clench something in you and tighten up, and that's a feeling of resistance or of anger. Outrage, in a certain sense, when it comes to disgust, you'll feel nauseous, almost like you want to throw up. Joy, awe, wonder, it's that wonderful shimmering, streaming feeling, where, like when you get goosebumps or something. Of course, surprise is kind of like a red alert everywhere in your body. And guilt and shame, that's a kind of feeling, a drawing in feeling, like depression is a drawing in feeling, where your body kind of collapses in on itself and your energy is low and you feel you don't have that energetic enthusiasm for life anymore. So that's the fast way to identify what you're feeling as. And then what insight, what lesson is it that this feeling is speaking to you about? Have you got a joy list, the things that you love in life? Do you let yourself be creative, where you pursue some kind of creativity, some kind of thing that you like to invent or do with your passion that's an expression of your passion? Or healing, do you let yourself grieve? Do you let yourself heal and let go? Do you let yourself apologize and forgive? And then learn not to stuff your feelings. Learn to express them, not in anger. Did you notice that when I was describing the feelings, I didn't mention anger? That's because anger only comes when we have deep feelings that we hold down and repress, and we get to the place of feeling defensive and endangered. That's when anger comes up. So you're right. Fighting nice has nothing to do with anger or yelling and screaming, because those anger, yelling and screaming, controlling, those are not intelligent, and we really are pretty much out of control when we get to that point. If we want to solve a problem, we want to go in with intelligence and empathy and respect. And so if you avoid the conflict, usually you get to anger, and then what's anger? It's not intelligent, it's not empathetic, and you're trying to solve a problem with something that's out of control and doesn't have really the skill to get something done that's constructive. Okay. Let me see. I've got so many. I'm looking at the components of my chapter in my designer marriage book on emotional intelligence and emotional intimacy. And there's a lot here. We could do probably the next 10 red rooms on these components. But I just wanted to introduce you to them tonight and to see, which parts are getting in the way of your relationship. Now, personal power is the power of self-esteem. That means feeling self-worthy, significant, a sense of identity. That's a whole body of work in itself. And that's somewhere down the future. So I just talked about emotional expression. Any questions about that? Let me know. Type to me. And then emotional management. I love the idea of using personal adversity for transformation. Remember the component of emotional intelligence that I uh, read as part of the list of 20 components of resiliency, and also the component of constructive discontent. And this is the bouncing back and then constructive discontent. Okay, that was a bump in the road. Now a bounce back, what are we going to do? The constructive discontent, or using adversity for personal transformation, where we find a bump in the road and we say, oh, a bump in the road. I have some things to learn here because I didn't predict this, or it came to me and something needs to be solved here. Let me find out about it. Constructive discontent means I don't like this and I'm going to be constructive with it, which means I'm going to see it from the positive viewpoint. I'm going to see it from the viewpoint if I can do something about this, I'm not a victim, or from the curiosity of saying I can do something about this, but I don't know what. Let me find out. Let me ask somebody. Let me do some research and make this into a constructive process that leads me into something that's a resolution or an innovative idea or a coming together in my relationship. So any questions from my viewers tonight? You guys have been listening so quietly, and I trust that this is making sense, that you can apply this. It's not too theoretical. Sometimes I can get too theoretical when I have a lot of things to cover. Of course, one of the other parts of emotional intelligence in a relationship is how our gender differences appear in our brain and in our feeling nature. And most of us who love men, most of us women who love men, know that men are more emotionally sensitive than women are. Now, when I say that, people kind of say, well, wait a minute. What I usually hear is that women are more emotional than men. Well, yeah, they may be more expressive of their feelings, but what's true is that men are more sensitive emotionally. And that explains many things, one of which is that many women get frustrated that their boyfriend or their husband or their beloved doesn't open up his heart and doesn't express his emotions freely. And part of that is when he does, if it's not safe, he is more devastated by his hurtful feelings than a woman is. He has a longer time to process them and grieve them, longer time to bounce back and find himself, find his even stride. And so he's going to avoid those risks. He's going to avoid taking those risks unless he's assured himself that it's not going to be too troublesome, because he's so sensitive to that. Does that make sense? I'm quiet because I'm paying attention and loving this topic. Oh, thank you. Good. I wanted to make sure that I wasn't getting too theoretical on you. Thanks. So, yes, women are usually more expressive of emotions, partly because we're more resilient with them. Not everybody, of course, but we have the ability to think and feel at the same time because we have that corpus callosum. It's a connector in the top of the brain that connects our left and right brain, which means if I'm feeling something, I know what I'm thinking about it. If I'm thinking something, I know what I'm feeling about it, because they're connected. Now, in a man's brain, he doesn't have that corpus callosum the way a woman does, which means sometimes when he's feeling, and you ask him what he's feeling, and I know I've mentioned this before, he'll have tears running down his cheeks. And you'll say, well, what's the matter? What are you feeling? And he'll just, tears running down, he'll say, I don't know. And a woman will say, what do you mean you don't know? I mean, obviously you're deeply moved about something. Something's going on. And I know that when I feel something that strongly or passionately, I definitely know why. And that's because she can think at the same time. She can reason it through. She can evaluate. She can figure it out. And she can say, oh, this is why I'm so scared and terrified. But Oftentimes a man is in that deep feeling and he can't logically logic it through intellectually because his left brain is over there. He's not connected with it. Excuse me. And then on the other hand, when our men go to the left brain and we ask them, they're thinking about something, and they seem to be so cerebral and so rational and so intellectual. It's like, how come he's so unempathetic? How come he's so unemotional? Well, because his emotions aren't there. And they'll say, well, what do you feel about that? And he'll say, well, I don't know. I can tell you the costs and the benefits. I can logic it through whether this is a good thing or a negative thing, but I don't know what I feel about it. So one of the things that I usually want to teach when I'm talking about emotional intelligence is those brain differences between men and women, so that we have empathy for how the two genders work and how they work differently. And thank goodness they work differently. And we could go into a long discussion about that, and I probably will in one of the upcoming Red Rooms. But tonight, the Red Room is about the fourth component necessary in a real intimate relationship, and that means emotional intimacy. We need to make it safe for each other to disclose, openly disclose the things that we care about. Because when we talk about the things we care about, that means we are emotional about them. What we're sad about, what we're happy about, what we dream about, what we are poetic about. Notice people who are uncomfortable with going deeply and opening the depths of their heart, mind, and soul to another person. They're going to shut down. They'll get defensive in some way. They just won't want to talk about it. They'll close up and go away. They'll attack you to keep you away from them. Or they'll just be cerebral and just continue to talk about it. Or they'll insult you in some way or shame you to say, you know, what right have you got to ask me to open up like that? Or some people will be just very, very polite. Others will use a sense of humor. How often do you know somebody that instead of going deeply, they laugh it off or they make a joke? And it feels kind of like a slap in the face if you've opened up and said something truly heartfelt and they make a joke about it. Ooh, that's not nice. Have you ever seen that used in a movie? It's so effective. You see somebody be very heartfelt and the other person makes a joke. Oh, it's desecrating a sacred moment. So there are all different ways that we or our families avoid opening up and being completely honest, vulnerable, and sensitive to what's going on inside and outside. Excuse me. Any questions? Love to get your questions. But I'm going to close tonight, excuse me, and we're just going to talk about the handout that I gave you to download. So, first of all, we've already talked about withdrawing to cool down, because getting upset and getting angry doesn't solve any problem. So you're right, fighting is not what we want to do. Fighting nice means getting intelligent and getting thoughtful and being respectful. And when you find yourself getting out of control and you need to withdraw and cool down, that you don't just turn around and leave, or you don't just say, time out, this isn't working. What the best way is to set it up in advance. When you decide as a couple to solve your problems with civility and respect and intelligence, you say, you know I get out of control sometimes. So when I get out of control, and I worked with a couple, it was quite delightful. She knew, she'd already learned from when she was a very passionate woman. When she was a teenager, she knew that if she could get in her car and go for a drive, she'd think it through, mull it through, calm down, and come back, and she'd be fine. Well, in this marriage, her husband felt like if she was going for a drive, she was abandoning him. She was walking out on him. She was refusing to talk to him. She was refusing to solve the problem. But when we talked about it, and she was able to say, no, that's the way that I know how to manage my feelings. He said, oh, okay. And then he was fine with, when they did get up against it, she'd say, honey, I need to go for a drive. I'm just getting, and he'd say, okay, see you later. So he didn't resist. He gave her permission to withdraw and to go for the drive that she knew worked for her. And then in essence, they set it up with the invitation to return, where she said, I'm going to go for a drive, and then when I cool down, I'll come back. So being very clear, very upfront about what works and how it works. We need to let it out. We need catharsis. We need to vent. And my little rule of thumb is I need to vent, and I do it for myself, and I do it by myself. If I need to yell and scream or kick or just go at it, I need to remove myself from the presence of any other person and do it alone. I have done so much screaming in my car that I couldn't even talk. Or going for a walk and just talking to the sky or talking to God, or crying and sobbing in my chair with my journal book. But when you've got that kind of need for venting and catharsis, you want to do it for yourself, by yourself. And incidentally, I do not like punching bags. I do not like ways to encourage violence and anger. I want to get past the anger, and I don't want to stay with it. I don't want to escalate it, because anger is, frankly, stupid. It is not intelligent. It is not empathetic. It's just action energy. It's the reptile brain. So if you're angry, we want you to get it out, but we don't want you to escalate it, which is why I don't like punching bags. You can tell what I feel about the wrestling and fighting industry, right? So if you have anger, you need to get it out and find a way to get it out, but not to escalate it. Then number 3, think through the complaint and request of change alone. And or together. Sometimes you can do that if you're calm and if you're intelligent. But if you're not calm and intelligent and you're going at it, you've got to get away, got to get alone. Which means when we want to solve a problem and not avoid the conflict, we need to come with not an accusation, not a confrontation. People say, well, I'm afraid of confrontation. I'm saying, yeah, it doesn't work. We don't want to confront. And we don't want to compromise. Compromise says, well, I'll be the doormat here, or I'll sacrifice. No. When we solve a problem, we want to figure it out and be creative, which means you've got to be not angry and not over emotional. We want to move you into your creativity and your problem-solving mode, which takes intelligence, wisdom, smarts. So what you want to construct is a complaint. You don't want to point the finger. You don't want to accuse. You don't want to play victim and whine and poor little old me. There's nothing I can do about it. You want to decide what to complain about. That means I'm going to complain about something that I think is a problem, and I'm not going to accuse you or point my finger at you. I'm just going to complain. And then I'm going to request a change. And the kind of change I request is going to be respectful, and I'm not going to hold you to it. I'm going to say, this is my request for change. Maybe you've got a better idea. And I don't know how much of this you're willing to do or how much change suits you, but this is as far as I've been able to get. So this is my complaint, and this is my request for change. Notice, you're complaining about something, but then you're also suggesting a solution. You're not just going to get into a fight because you want to get some catharsis or get the drama out. Gotta go. Yes. I'm going to go in a minute too. The voice of reason and cushion statements, that was inherent in that. And then take action for solutions, solve the problem, and that's the request for change. So tonight, yes, we talked about 4 steps to fight nice, and the truth is, it's not about fighting, it's about solving a problem, a complaint with a request for change, and then thinking it through and figuring out what's going to work. Thank you so much for tuning in and watching this evening. It's so nice to have viewers and appreciative viewers like you. Thank you for listening to the 4th of 6 components that make up a great marriage or intimate relationship, and we'll be talking about the 5th component next week on the Red Room at the same time. The 5th component is your romantic bond, and of course, that almost always means with healthy people, a great sex life. We'll talk about that next week. And so for now, it's good night, and I'll see you next week in the Red Room. Bye-bye for now.